Hello everybody, this is Paul Neeson with Torah Life Ministries. And I love reading the scriptures, and whenever somebody asks me something, I say, well, don't ask me, I'm not going to answer you about the scriptures. Let's see what the scriptures have to say about it, and I like to take it to the scriptures. The problem is, what happens when you have two translations that say the opposite thing? Then you have an issue. I know there's one verse when I talk about health and diet and food, it says, it's not what goes into the mouth that's unclean, it's what comes out of the body that's unclean. And therefore, everything he declared clean. And that's really not true. That was added, therefore he declared everything clean. And if you're just looking at the common translations of Scripture, it seems clearly like he said everything's clean, so everything's clean. Well, when you start doing a little research and realize that was added, and you start looking at more of the original text, you start seeing the issue. But what if we don't have access to the original text, which we do today, because the computers and everything else, we could see just about every translation of the scripture. However, again, it's computer. You don't know who's written it or who's put that on the computer or anything. So how do you be sure? Well, there's one way to be sure, folks. The renewed covenant, also known as the New Testament, should not counteract the original covenant, the Old Testament. There's one book and they go hand in hand. So if you're reading something in the original covenant, the Old Testament, and then in the New Testament, it says something that seems like it's opposite to what it said in the original, that is not a good translation. Our Creator doesn't give us opposites and make things harder for us. He wants to make them easier for us. Now, I know many people say, but Paul's writings, it seems like Paul is telling us we no longer have to do some of the things that are found in the original covenant. Again, folks, I just answered the question. Good translation, bad translation. And I remember I was interviewing a fellow named Lex Meyer, who has a wonderful website. I think it's called Unschooling, which is quite an accurate statement. But I've interviewed many people that have grown up in a Christian home or came out of Christianity, and they found the true scriptures, what our Messiah was saying, and truly started following the way of our Messiah. And I would ask them, I would say, you've been a Christian for so many years, how come you missed it? And many people would say, and it was also under my impression, that people aren't reading their scriptures. That's why they're missing it. Because if they read the scriptures, how could they miss it? But then when I interviewed Lex Meyer, who's he went to seminary school and he read his Bible a lot. So I asked him, if he's reading it, how come he missed it? Because for so many years he was missing the original message of our Messiah when it comes to how we should live. And he said he got so indoctrinated with the Christian mindset thinking that he actually became brainwashed. So even though he was reading it, he still couldn't figure it out until one day the blindness fell off his eyes and he's figured it out. And this is what it is. It's a Christian thinking, the mindset that's just brainwashing so many people into what the words of Messiah really say. And they use their tools, and their tools are often the scriptures. So remember, folks, if it counteracts, it's not a good translation. They should go together. The message was never changed. You see, the idea of how we were supposed to live, that the majority of the Bible was written about, was not done away with. The idea of the guidelines and instructions I've created from the beginning was, we do what we can. If we can do it, we do it. If we can't, it just can't be done. Thus goes the idea Yeshua said, do what you have control over, don't worry about the other things, and so on. But this is how people think. They worry about the things they don't have control over. Yeshua has told us, don't worry about the things that you can't change. You can't do these things. But the things you can do, do. So when it comes to the guidelines and instructions of our Creator, there are so many things that I can't do. I'm not a woman. I'm not an animal. I don't have a farm. I'm not a farmer. So I can't keep these guidelines and instructions. But I am a man. And I have money. And I have my health. And I have a family. And I have clothing. And I have neighbors. And I do business. And I have a ministry. So there's so many guidelines and instructions for each of these situations that I can still do. So, and that's the message when it comes to how we are to live according to Scripture. Now, Yeshua says, through my blood, you have salvation in me. He died for our transgressions. He died for our lifestyle that we were able to not completely fulfill. But he also told us, do what you can. Sin is not doing what our Creator told you to do and knowing you should do it. So when the harlot came to Yeshua, Yeshua said, go and sin no more. So in essence, go and stop living a life against the instructions of our Creator. And I believe that's his message for all of us. Go and stop living a life against the message of our Creator. With CBs and truckers or the radio handle, I have 10-4 over and out. 10-4 and over and out. Now, I don't know numbers, I don't know CBs and radios, but I know 10-4 over and out. Well, today I want to look at a verse, is Romans 10-4. And that has nothing to do with 10-4 over and out, but maybe it does. Let's look at what it says. So Romans 10-4 Romans 10-4, in a good translation, will make a lot of sense. In a good translation, and I have two here. One of them here is a One New Man Bible, Revealing Jewish Roots by William Morford. And you can go to my website on Torah Life Ministries.org, and you can click on, it says Bible on there, and at the top of the screen, and you can click on that, and you could find more about the scriptures. So it says here, because the purpose of the Torah, and in parentheses it says teaching, because that's what Torah means, teaching, is Messiah in order to provide righteousness for everyone who believes. That's it. The purpose of the Torah is Messiah in order to provide righteousness for everyone who believes. So if you believe, you're going to follow the teachings. The purpose of Messiah, who's known as the living Torah, the perfect Torah, lived as an example to how we should live and how these teachings should be performed. Now let's look at this translation, Hebraic roots, a literal translation, one of my favorite translations of the scriptures. Again, we look at Romans 10:4, and this one I'm not a big fan of the notes in the matter of many scriptures, but this one I really like because it's actually accurate in many of the parts I've seen. So it says, Romans 10:4, for Messiah is the goal of the Torah for righteousness to everyone that believes. So again, for Messiah is the goal of the Torah for righteousness that everyone that believes. So that's what it says. It doesn't counteract the original scriptures. The original scriptures tell us what to do, and then we got Messiah who's done it, set the example for us on how to do it. Yeshua said, go and do it. Do not do anything less than what you can do. That was the message of Messiah in Matthew 5:17. Whoever does the least is called whoever does not do one of these things that they can be doing will be called the least in the kingdom of the heavens. So Romans 10:4 again. For Messiah is the goal of the Torah for righteousness for everyone that believes. Well, now let's go and look on what it says here in a note in this one. And I really like this, and then we're going to read one of the common translations today and see why there's so much confusion. So here it says, many translations wrongly translate this word as end. And the word they're talking about here is goal. Messiah is the goal. So many of the common translations will have the word end instead of goal. So it'll say Messiah is the end. And thus they think if he's the end, then the guidelines and instructions must be done away with. So there you see where the translation comes. So it says, many translations wrongly translate this word as end, bringing the false belief that Torah has somehow ended. Or bringing the false belief that the guidelines and instructions of our Creator are no longer important. And however, both the Aramaic and even Greek, the word means goal or end result. And is showing that to the true believer, Yeshua is the goal in how we should strive to be, and he kept Torah perfectly. So we got Yeshua is the goal and how we strive to be, and he kept Torah, the guidelines and instructions of our Creator, perfectly. And that's what you get with a translation, a good translation. Now, I have a couple of other translations here, and we'll see what they have to say. So I have a Hebrew-English Bible that actually somebody sent me. Thank you very much. They sent a nice card, and they sent me the scriptures. Beautiful scriptures, a Hebrew-English Bible. Now, it's one day my desire to know Hebrew and read Hebrew. I do not right now, but I do know well enough to know that Hebrew goes backwards. Or let me say English goes backwards, and Hebrew's going the way it originally most likely was. So we get to Romans 10:4 in this more common translation of the scriptures. And again, I don't know what it says in the Hebrew. It's right here. But I'm going to tell you what Romans 10:4 says in this scriptures. And I just grabbed these scriptures. Most of the common scriptures will agree with this one, which I don't agree with. But I'm just going to grab you to give you an idea of the difference of how that sounds. Now I'm running in, backwards here. So Romans 10:4, it says, for Christ. So they don't even say Messiah. They don't even say Yeshua. They say for Christ. So right there, that's, we know it's not in the more accurate language. Okay, so for Christ is the end of the law. So they say the end. So here it says end. It doesn't say goal. It says end. But it should say goal. So for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. Now, if I'm reading that, I'm going to think we no longer have to keep the guidelines and instructions of our Creator. First of all, it says law. It doesn't even say Torah. So let's translate it the way it should read. For Yeshua is the goal of the Torah for righteousness for everyone who believes. Makes much more sense. But how does it read to the average Christian? For Christ is the end of the law of righteousness to everyone who believes. First of all, the word Torah does not mean law. Law is just a confusing word. It means God. Torah means guidelines and instructions. Law means you have to do this and forget about the salvation, the blood of our Messiah. You got to follow the law. No, it's the guidelines and instructions of Torah. So again, how it reads here, for Christ is the end of the law for righteousness to everyone who believes. How it should read, in correction, for Yeshua is the goal of the Torah for righteousness to everyone who believes. Now, even worse, we're going to read the New Life Application Study Bible. And why I say even worse, not only does it render or mess up the translation, but it also messes up the notes under it to misguide people. So it goes here. For Christ has already come, and this is the New Living Translation. So it says, for Christ has already accomplished the purpose for which the law was given. As a result, all who believe in him are made right with God. Do you see, folks, how these mistranslations get watered down, taken apart, and completely mean something different? It's no wonder why even Christians that do read their Bibles are so confused about what they should be doing and how they should be doing it. Because not only the people brainwashed who aren't reading them, but the people that are reading them are just confused. Again, for Christ has already accomplished the purpose for which the law was given. As a result, all who believe in him are made right with God. And here's what the ridiculous note says at the bottom of this. Okay, it says, rather than living by faith in God, the Jewish people established customs and traditions in addition to God's law to try to make themselves acceptable to God's sight. But human effort, no matter how sincere, can never substitute for the righteousness God offers us by faith. The only way to earn salvation is to be perfect, and that is impossible. We can only hold out our empty hands and receive salvation as a gift. Wonderful, and that's true. We can't work our way to be saved. Here's the problem. So it sets the person's mindset up. Hey, that sounds pretty good. But then it goes, and here's what it says about 10:4. It says, Christ accomplished a purpose for which the law was given in two ways. He fulfills the purpose and the goal of the law, and in that he perfectly exemplified God's desires on earth. But he also termination of the law, because in comparison to Yeshua Christ, the law is powerless to save. So he's saying that the law was done away with because man can't keep it perfect, and Yeshua kept it perfect. That is so untrue, folks. No, the law was given for us to keep us safe and to keep us on the path and to keep us focused. And Yeshua, yes, we are saved by his blood and his blood only, but he never said, don't live like my Father told you to live. He told us to keep the guidelines and instructions. He said, if you do, you love me if you do. But if you go and say, I can't do this, or I'm going to pick and choose this, or I don't want to do this. Remember, folks, Yeshua came and he rebuked mostly the people's attitudes, not their actions. And their attitudes were, I no longer need to do what our Creator told us to do. Because I have the guidelines, because I have the New Testament. And it says it's the end of the law. No, it's the goal of the Torah. So the end of the law versus the goal of the Torah. The end of the law sounds nice to our flesh, folks. The goal of the Torah is spiritually where we should be. You have a choice. James 4:17 says to know good and not do it, to him it is sin. And what is the measurement of good? It's Torah, the guidelines and instructions of our Creator. So you decide, you make your choice, and I pray that you make the right choice. And this is Paul with Torah Life Ministries. You can see more information about what faith is and what the law is, all on my website, torahlife.tv. Until then, everybody, have a great day. Shalom, shalom, and 10-4, over and out.
Come out of the world, oh my people, seek the truth, avoid the evil, learn Yahweh's ways, Torah Life Ministries, come out of the world.